Well, good afternoon, and thanks for tuning in, everyone. This is Sarah Wolcott of the Wine Bloggers Conference and Zephyr Adventures. And joining us this afternoon are the lovely and talented duo, Corbett Barr, who's the co-founder and CEO of Fizzle, Fizzle.co, and Thea Dwelle, who's been with the Wine Bloggers Conference for every single year since its inception. And she is a blogger at the Luscious Lushes wine, food, and travel blog. Thanks for participating, you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. My pleasure. So we're here just to chat briefly, just to have a little fireside chat, if you will, about the Wine Bloggers Conference, which is coming up this July in beautiful Santa Barbara wine country and in the iconic wine town of Buellton. And we are all going to be descending upon this lovely area July 11th through 13th, and Corbett is the keynote speaker for the 2014 Wine Bloggers Conference. And Thea, who, as you already know, has been with been a participant for a number of years, also is the chair of the Wine Bloggers Conference Scholarship Foundation, which is awesome. So Thea and I just had a couple questions for you, Corbett, and wanted to pick your brain about your business and the world of blogging, and maybe even throw in a couple wine questions or two. How do you feel about that?
All right, let's see what I can do.
First of all, did you drink any wine over the weekend?
Did I drink any wine over the weekend? The answer is uncommonly no. Normally, yes, I would have wine. This weekend, however, we went to a place in Berkeley called Camal, a new Mexican restaurant, and so I had some mezcal actually this weekend.
That counts. Anything with anything with a little bit of kick, we'll let that slide for the weekend.
It's fermented. It's just from the mezcal instead of grapes.
Right. We'll let that one slide. That's okay. And Thea, I think I already know the answer to this question, but did you have any wine this weekend? And if so, what was your favorite?
Maybe just a little bit, since it was our birthday. I think my favorite had an absolutely phenomenal at an Italian restaurant, and that was my favorite for the whole week.
And I didn't quite catch that last bit, but did you also have you said you had some champagne over the weekend as well?
I did. I had champagne. So you have to celebrate birthdays.
So for those of you out there, Thea and I share the birthday of June 7th, so that's our little personal plug for the afternoon. Corbett, just a little bit about you. You are the co-founder and CEO of Fizzle, which is an online learning library and community for online marketing and web entrepreneurship. Can you speak just a little bit to how you had the vision for Fizzle and how your experiences as a blogger really kind of propelled you towards starting that business?
Yeah, absolutely. And, Sarah, I'm not sure if it's your machine, but there's a lot of feedback coming over the. There's like an echo when I speak, almost as if your speakers are turned up too loud.
Okay.
Let's see if that does it.
We'll give that a whirl.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll give that a whirl.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, so Fizzle, as you said, is a training library for entrepreneurs. We have courses from all kinds of experts on different topics that an entrepreneur, and when we say entrepreneur, we mean sort of small independent entrepreneur, someone who is trying to earn a living by doing something online, not necessarily trying to raise venture capital or something that's really big, but just to support yourself and to do something independent that fires you up. Wine bloggers are a great example of the kind of person that that we're going after. We have food bloggers in the community. We have musicians, and we actually have a wine blogger success story in the community as well. Andy Perdue, who has attended the conference before. He is the columnist for the Seattle Times, and he started a blog a couple of years ago. He joined Fizzle, started a blog called Great Northwest Wine, and that helped him land the Seattle Times columnist position, as well as a number of sponsorships that he's gotten for his site as well. So that's what Fizzle is all about. My history as a blogger, I started in 2009. I was actually on a road trip, sabbatical, with my wife through Mexico. We decided to hit the reset button on life for a while. I had done a sort of traditional venture capital-backed startup for a number of years, and in 2008, when the financial world collapsed, we were left wondering what we wanted to do next, and we headed off on a sabbatical to Mexico. And while we were down there, something really interesting happened. I think that I thought I would return to the regular world and have a new startup idea and jump back into things like everyone here in Silicon Valley tends to do. But instead, we kept meeting really interesting people who weren't rich or retired, but had somehow figured out ways to make their careers work around their lives instead of the other way around, so that they could live in a foreign country for months every year, doing something that they loved, probably bringing their work with them or maybe putting it on pause. So on a whim, I started a blog basically to chronicle our trip, to tell the stories of all these people that we were meeting, and to start asking myself some questions in public about the nature of life and career and how the two should work together. So I started that blog, and it turned out to be a really hot topic, and in the span of the first year of blogging, over 500,000 people visited my site, and it made me start to wonder if I could turn that into something else, if blogging couldn't be a stepping stone into a whole lifestyle change and a business. And that was over 5 years ago, and I haven't looked back, and I really owe blogging all of the changes in my lifestyle and the success that I've had since then.
That's a fantastic success story, and I have been following Andy Perdue for a number of years and did not know that background on him, so that's awesome. So very cool.
Yep.
Thea, you've been a wine, food, and travel blogger for a number of years, and you're also a successful self-starter. How do you feel like your background in blogging has contributed to your other quote-unquote day job successes, or the other way around?
It's actually been an incredible year for me. I recently Sorry, I was having a little kickback. I recently left my traditional career in tech. I have spent 20 years in technology doing technology consulting for a number of different tools, and I parlayed that into doing technology for wineries. And the way that I did that was, number one, through the connections that I made by being a blogger and knowing the wine industry really well, but also by knowing my stuff. You know, I've been blogging for 8 years, much like you, Corbett. And I've learned all these different tools throughout the years, not just with blogging, but with technology, and it's a way to build a strong background to change your career. You know, I don't know if I'll ever get to the point where I can run around the world for 5 years, although I'd love to, but I actually really love my day job, and it's a combination of both of my passions, and by just, you know, constantly spending time getting to know people, getting to know the tools, getting to know my industry, I've really been able to change what I'm doing this year, which has been fantastic.
Perfect. Thea, do you have any specific questions for Corbett, or want to pick his brain a little bit more about what Fizzle does?
I do. You know, I'd love to know, as someone who has a background in tech and also blogging for 8 years, tools come and go every day, and it's really difficult for us as bloggers to, you know, figure out what is the best tool, what is the best way to learn, what is the best platform. So how do you choose your platforms and your tools? Because with things like Google Plus is great, but, you know, we all know we had Google Buzz and Google Wave and Google Plus, and everything changes so quickly. How do you choose what you use to enhance your blogging and your media?
Yeah, because of all those changes, honestly, I don't trust any single platform. I caution people against putting all of their eggs in one basket, whether it be Facebook or Twitter or Google Plus or anything like that, because like you said, they come and go. In fact, there was rumor just a month ago that Google Plus was in jeopardy because of changes at Google. And that would be a real shame if you had put your entire business into one of those platforms and they pulled the rug out from under you. In fact, we also see a lot of times that Google changes their search algorithms, or that For example, Facebook no longer allows you to broadcast things to everyone who's following your page. You have to pay for placement even though someone's following your page. So the best option is always to build up your own platform, to own your own domain, to own the words that you write and the videos that you put out, and to grow an email list and to have people following you in different places so that when those things do change, you still have the core of what your business is. And you know, at the end of the day, blogging or video or whatever it is, podcasting, whatever it is that you do, it's really about the content and the connections that you make, and not so much about the technology. The technology can help, and it's useful to get a leg up on those things, but you know, in general, it doesn't matter what platforms are popular because the same things are always true. You have to figure out what you're going to create, how it's going to impact people, who is going to benefit from it, and how you're going to reach those people. And you know, that's true no matter what the flavor of the day is in terms of social media.
Yeah, and that's actually really good. So, and speaking of reaching people, how do you find your audience? What do you find the most successful way to find your audience?
Say that again. What is the most successful way to find an audience?
What has been your most successful way? Because you know, there's multiple ways to go out and seek your audience, whether it's social media or other ways, and everybody's a little bit different. But I'm always curious to hear from a successful entrepreneur like yourself. How do you go out and find your audience, and what do you find most successful?
I'd say there have been two ways that have mattered most. The first is through connections with other bloggers. So just over the past 5.5 years, or even in the beginning for me, being very intentional about trying to make friends in the blogosphere, trying to become friends with people who I thought were going places or people who had some sort of influence. Because if you think about it, at the end of the day, in order to build an audience, you have to figure out where those people are hanging out already, and then work to bring them back to your site. And one of the places that people spend a lot of time who are going to be good targets for you as a blogger is other blogs, right? So if you're able to get featured on other blogs, if you're able to get your content on other blogs somehow, that can be a really fantastic way to grow your own audience. And for me, that always starts with genuine connections and relationships that I make with people. And the best place that I've been able to do that, honestly, has been in person by attending conferences. So when you go to a conference like this, like the WBC, there are going to be all kinds of other people out there. You're going to see the A-listers in the industry, and you're also going to see a lot of people who are peers of yours, people who are maybe up-and-comers, people that you recognize have that magic spark. And it can be very valuable to spend time with those people and get to know them in person, because there's nothing like an in-person connection for some reason. Those are just the connections that seem to last the longest and seem to go the deepest. So connections and making friends with other bloggers, that's been really big for me, probably the biggest. The second biggest is honestly learning to craft content that stands on its own, that you don't have to push very hard. The kind of thing that you create and put out there, and then once it's on a social blogging site, or once it's on a social media site like Twitter or something, it picks up its own steam and becomes whatever you want to call it. Some people might use the word viral, and it's not necessarily viral like it spreads to the entire world, but just that it has an attractive headline. It's the kind of thing that people want to share. And learning to craft content like that is really great, because then you don't have to rely on other people, and you don't have to work that hard to get that content out there and to make it work for you, because as soon as you release it onto Facebook or Twitter or something like that, people just start clicking that retweet button or that like button because it has a great headline and it has the content that people are looking for.
I think that's great advice, and that's certainly true. One of the reasons why I've been to every single Bloggers conference is for that networking capability.
Yeah, absolutely.
And being, one of the additional beauties of the Wine Bloggers Conference is it's all about a pretty darn authentic subject matter. Wine is agricultural, wine is social, wine is science and art. I mean, the amount of content that surrounds wine is pretty much endless, and I think that also speaks to just how cool the wine blogging atmosphere is out there, because there's a never-ending stream of stuff to write about from a really authentic point of view, and I think that that's also kind of what you're speaking to as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I've gotten to know a number of wine bloggers recently, partly for doing research for this conference and to make my talk as best I can. And I've just been blown away by the quality of writing that's out there, by the amount of effort and care that people invest into their blogs. And I love wine, and I'm jealous a little bit of what everyone gets to do every day, in terms of wine blogging. It does feel like a really cool, fun, interesting, supportive atmosphere, and I'm really excited about the conference.
Very cool. Well, Thea, any last-minute questions for Corbett here?
I think one question that a lot of people would love to know, and your advice, just a soundbite, what is the best way to craft content to grab people's attention, as you were saying, to create that viral content?
Yeah, so there are a couple of things. First of all, you have to realize that if you have a really good point to make or some sort of really great, tip or something that you're trying to give to people, if it's buried inside of a blog post, really deep down inside, and people aren't going to know it unless they read the whole thing and they really pay attention, it's really easy to put a lot of work into create something that's probably really good, but for that good work to go overlooked because you didn't do some of the simple things that you should really do in order to make your content as shareable as it could be. So, you have to focus first on creating something that's really useful for people, but then you have to make that thing that's really useful as attractive and shareable as possible. And so to make something that's really shareable, it comes down to the way that you craft your content in terms of how you lay it out, how accessible each paragraph is. Big, long blocks of text are the worst, and people aren't interested in wading through that sort of thing. So you have to make your content accessible by breaking it up, by bolding things and calling attention where it needs to be called, by using photos that are attractive and illustrative of what you're trying to say. And all of this has to lead to the very beginning of the post, which is the headline and the first couple of sentences or the first paragraph. The headline is something that I think a lot of people overlook, and they don't realize that a headline really makes or breaks a post, an individual post, and decides whether or not it's shareable. The headline itself is the reason why something is shared. And so if you want to make shareable content, you have to put a lot of time and effort into learning how to craft headlines. This is a skill you have to learn over time by studying what makes content become shareable, by reading a lot of sites, by looking at what gets shared, and by trying to borrow from formulas and things that you see out there on the world or out there on the web, trying to borrow those and use them for your own content and to see how it affects how shareable your content is. So instead of putting 95% of time into the post itself, into the words that you're putting into the post, spend 70% of time on the content itself, and then reserve a bunch of time just to try different headlines, to figure things out that work, so that you give your content that you work so hard on the best shot at being as shareable as it possibly can.
Great piece of super practical advice, and we look forward to hearing everything else that you have to say at the Wine Bloggers Conference coming up. So sounds like you're diligently prepping for your keynote speech, and we look forward to hearing the rest of the conversation. So thank you so much, Corbett.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
Well, we've got a really dynamite lineup of content programming at the 2014 Wine Bloggers Conference, and many different wine-related and sponsorship lunches, dinners, and other activities. So probably won't be any sipping on mezcal during the Wine Bloggers Conference, Corbett, but we can't wait to introduce you to a whole bunch of other writers out there, as well as wines from around the world.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Appreciate the time, and thank you so much. We'll see you in July in Santa Barbara Wine Country.
Thanks, you guys.